Time is of the essence in the digital economy. The modern supply chain depends on a platform that helps customers build modernized supply chains that helps businesses drive progress and advance their sustainable business agenda. The smart supply chain of the future requires a platform powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning that delivers predictive visibility, real-time insights, and personalized customer experiences for the enterprise. The answer? Blue Yonder's Luminate Digital Fulfillment Platform, the industry's first and only intelligence-enriched integrated supply chain platform that spans supply chain, retail planning, logistics, and delivery in one end-to-end solution. Blue Yonder's Luminate platform delivers the fastest, most cost-effective, and sustainable response. Luminate, built on Azure and powered by API services from MuleSoft, future-proofs your supply chain ecosystem with 360-degree intelligence that delivers complete visibility across your entire supply chain and provides you with an unmatched ability to create, integrate, and customize workflows and apps inside and outside your enterprise. With Luminate, you can integrate and synchronize forecast, warehouse and transportation logistics, labor and delivery across multiple channels, reducing latency driven by disjointed systems, and delivering real-time visibility and orchestration. The one-of-its-kind platform helps companies better predict, plan, manage, and optimize inventory and labor to deliver the right product at the right price at the right time to consumers' channel of choice. What's more, Luminate's decision automation is accessible from any desktop or mobile device. Luminate's built-in machine learning and artificial intelligence curates massive amounts of data, events, and trends, unlocking actionable business insights that help you solve problems in real time and enable more automated, profitable decisions. Using the Luminate platform, you can reduce project implementation time and costs, achieve a faster time to value, and leverage a standardized set of tools, templates, and workflows to develop new applications and value. Luminate delivers a modern user interface that provides a consistent, seamless experience across Blue Yonder's robust, feature-rich set of supply chain, logistics, and retail applications. With the Luminate platform, time is the new currency, welcoming the at-your-service as-a-service generation. Cognitive intelligence, actionable insights, self-learning automation. Get ready to experience friction-free commerce from Blue Yonder. That's the power of Luminate. And that's the power of now. Empowering you to fulfill your potential with Blue Yonder's Luminate platform.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another LogiSYM webinar. My name is Joe Lombardo. I'm the editor of the LogiSYM magazine. And also joining me today is Dr. Ramon Krishna, who is the president of the Logistics and Supply Chain Management Society. The subject of our webinar today is Get a Grip on Your Supply Chain Visibility, the Crucial Edge. And we are very pleased to welcome our two guests, Antonio Boccalardo, who's the president of Blue Yonder Asia for the Asia Pacific region, and Rodrigo Cambiaghi, who is a partner at EY and is the Asia Pacific and Greater China Supply Chain Operations practice leader. The subject today is extremely interesting to most of us, and we look forward to having a very fruitful discussion with our guests. Antonio, let me start asking you a very pertinent question. Everyone today is very concerned about visibility. The crisis has turned us into a topsy-turvy situation. What does supply chain visibility look like to you?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I think COVID-19 has actually highlighted what visibility means for a lot of the different supply chains. We just recently, and I say recently, actually just a couple of weeks ago, finished a survey with Warwick University, and the top 4 issues that companies across Asia, Europe, and the Americas, the first 2 were in reference to safety protocols and workforce in the DC and in the stores. The next 2 were about visibility. Number 1, visibility on my supply all the way up to my suppliers, and then visibility all the way down to my stores and the lack of that visibility. So today, having to know where is my inventory, what is my capacity, how is it going to affect my plans are critical. And I think in supply chain, no matter what industry you are in, if it's manufacturing, transportation, logistics, retail, services, having that visibility is key to be able to make an intelligent decision.
Right, that's very interesting. But behind all of that, we have the visualization tools. I mean, this is a very important area that we will explore further. Where are you taking us in that area, Antonio?
Yeah. So the way we look at it from Blue Yonder is, for many years, most supply chains have been making decisions based on what happened the year before or 2 or 3 years before, be it a statistical forecast, be it a production plan. What's happening today with artificial intelligence and machine learning language is the ability to really make decisions based on what happened today at the point of sales, right? So with the tools that you're mentioning, Joe, is the ability to say that, you know what, I might actually have a stock out in 3 weeks because I have a plan to sell so much and I have a plan to receive this much, but I have an issue with transportation, right? It might be freight, air freight, or it might be a vessel of any kind that is going to be late, that it's going to impact. And that ability to have that visibility into the future of comparing where is my inventory now, you know, what is the transit complications I'm having, and how is it going to impact my plans, helps us make those decisions. So you're absolutely right, Joe. It's about being able to visualize that, but being able to visualize it across your whole network. Okay, not just the plan, but the execution and putting it together.
Okay. Rodrigo, if I could ask you, because obviously you are very much involved with Blue Yonder on this, and you've written about the key change drivers, but could you share with us some of the transformation priorities that are involved in this journey of transformation in the visualization scenario?
Yeah, sure, Joe, and thanks very much for having me here. So I think just piggyback on what Antonio just commented. I think the capabilities that we have today in technology really empower the company to go to pursue the end-to-end, you know, what we call the end-to-end visibility across your network. If you look back what we had in the last couple of years or decades, you know, companies now, they are running, you know, TMS systems or WMS systems, you know, we are leveraging cloud platform, and we have a much stronger power in terms of analytical and machine learning and AI. So those combinations really needed to be used now to go after that end-to-end visibility. And once that is done, and it's not only about technology, it's really about empowering people. It's really leveraging that capability to put a predictive analytics, to put you know, recommendations on hands of decision makers in our industry. And later is really how you orchestrate that entire your entire network, because we are not talking here, as Antonio alluded to, we are not talking here about end-to-end from your own company perspective, but is really considering your trading partners, you know, your logistics providers, your suppliers, your distributors. So that's when we're going to start to get into that orchestration from an entire value chain.
Right. And we come back to that later on, Rodrigo. Thanks for the answer. But if I can just come back now to Antonio. And Antonio, I know that you have been working very much with various solutions on the tangible and intangible benefits. And clearly this involves the whole enterprise, the business, the employees, the stakeholders. Maybe you can share with us some of those experiences. And I know you have some charts to share with us as well, if you'd like to run through those and give us some updates.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If we want to go to the first slide, we can just talk about that. But what I think, Joe, what we're seeing is in reference to, again, be it retail, be it manufacturing, be it transportation, is the ability to be agile and to make quick decisions. One of the things that I think COVID-19 highlighted as we were working with, you know, prospects and customers is they were having a hard time really having the systems catching up with the reality of the situation in the moment, right? And I think from this point of view, and we were just talking about planning and execution, you know, again, when we talk about a plan, and let's talk about, you know, a forecast, right? What am I going to sell next week, what am I going to sell next month? Or if it's a transportation plan, what am I going to deliver tomorrow? Or a production plan, right? All those are, this is my plan. But traditionally, we've always felt, and we use PDCA, we do a plan, we execute or we do, okay, we checked, okay, and we adjust. So that's what we call PDCA, because the execution is the second part of the plan, right? And to some extent, we've always seen this as a little bit different. In Blue Yonder, what we're saying is this is merging. And in order for this to merge, and we call it control tower, is now you're going to have a plan, but you're constantly checking against that plan and making adjustments. Because there is one reality about supply chains, there's going to be variability, right? Things are going to happen, right? You know, you're going to have a spike in demand, or you're going to have a delayed shipment, or you're going to have a production machine that's going to go down. And you need to be able to make those changes quick. And this is exactly what I think COVID-19 and the pandemic, which is a humanitarian crisis, highlighted in a lot of the different supply chains. So from that perspective, what we're seeing customers coming to us saying is, they're telling us, I need to be able to make decisions faster, quicker, and I need to be able to see them real time, near real time to be able to do that. Okay. So if we can go to the next slide, you know, we can outline a little bit of what the experience and, you know, how our machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data, automation helping out. So when you look at, you know, what we do at Blue Yonder is we're looking to be able to do, our moonshot is what we call autonomous supply chain, right? So as much as possible, use that artificial intelligence to make decisions quicker and faster based on real data coming in. And it doesn't have to be data specifically just about the company. In our forecasting Illuminate Advantage solution, we're able to take weather data, or we're able to take pricing from the competition to be able to improve that information. So first of all, engaging the user, making sure the user has all the relevant information, because there are going to be users, and Rodrigo just mentioned it, you know, that team is going to have to be able to be part of that, right? It's about going always across end to end, because it is of no use if I create this amazing replenishment plan for the next 2 or 3 days, but my warehouse doesn't have the capacity. So again, it's getting that planning and execution aligned so that I can make those adjustments. It's about being predictive and changing things before they happen. Okay? If I'm in charge of sales and my goal is to sell 100 today, and I sell 50, and my boss tells me, you know, the key question he's going to generally ask me is, you know, what happened? The real question should have been is, when did you know you weren't going to sell 100? Okay, because at that moment in time, you can make an adjustment. So from that point of view and the platform, that's what we're trying to do, is create that cultural change, that DNA change, which is more about what's going to happen if I don't have that supply. How is it going to impact my plan in 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks?
Antonio, can I ask one question on that timing?
Yes,
what is your time horizon? Because obviously, so we sometimes measure response in hours, in days, in weeks. What is your vision and target towards responsiveness?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, the horizon, what we normally say in supply chain is the horizon you should be looking at should always be equal to the longest lead time you have, right? So if a specific raw material or a specific package or a specific supplier, you know, they need 90 days, 60 days, that is the minimum you should be looking at from the horizon perspective. Now, from the point of view of, in reference to how quickly do I want to have data to be able to make decisions, you know, call it refresh, call it near real time, really from that point of view, it should be in reference to, you know, how quickly can I make it? But in today's age, I would say that most manufacturers, most retailers should be able to get fresh data and make decisions at the very least in a daily fashion, right? Because that's how quickly business is moving, Joe.
Right, excellent, excellent, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So as we go into, this is what I think, what we call the highlights of really delivering, you know, intelligent decision making, and trying to really think that, and again, going back to the study I said before, one of the key things that highlighted is is that users had to override some of the prospects that we were working with that are thinking about making transformations. That were telling us we were having to override a lot of the decisions at statistical systems because things changed a lot. Customer behavior changed, right? You know, before the pandemic, if I went to grocery, my number one priority was price, right? Can I get the brand I want at the price I want? As soon as the pandemic hit and I went to the grocery store, it's no longer price. It's about, is the product available, right? Now, if the price was 5 or 10%, that fell second category. So as consumer behavior changes, not only in reference to price, but in reference to how do I want to buy, right? So segmentation is one of the key things that I think is always underestimated. No company has one supply chain. They have multiple supply chains, right? Because you might, if you're a retailer and you sell e-commerce online and you have stores, the truth is those are two very different supply chains, right? The way you handle it, the way you fulfill it, the way you plan it is different. So doing that segmentation by product, by channel, by suppliers is very important. I'm not going to talk a lot about predicted demand because I think we all agree that if we're able to have a better forecast that's based on the situation and the external factors, is always going to be much more positive. But the most important part is if I have that demand and I understand my constraints of the supply chain, I can start predicting what are going to be the bottlenecks and the disruptions I'm going to have. And the more I can predict that, the more I can minimize it now. Because once the stock out happens, if I have the stock out happen today, let's be honest, there's not a whole lot I can do, okay, if the stock out has already happened. But if I know the stock out is going to happen next week, there are certain playbooks and certain decisions, and the solutions can actually recommend, you know, can I move inventory and is that a profitable decision, right? Because it's always an issue about customer service and profit, right? Automated resolutions we talked about, parameter tunings, root cause analysis, right? And this is where machine learning is so important. It's really about not only being able to predict these disruptions, but also being able to suggest alternatives to solve these, right? Right. So okay. I think, and if it's a good time, Joe, I think this would be a perfect time to run the IKEA video. IKEA is a customer of ours globally using multiple of our solutions across the whole supply chain. And in this case, it's about a specific segment inside IKEA.
Right, okay, go ahead.
IKEA is a global brand that's been around for a long time. We're in the home furnishing business primarily, and we are getting close to having 500 stores around the world. Our main office and headquarters are in Sweden. Our main markets is Germany, US, UK, and then we are expanding heavily in Asia as well. My name is Lasse Gunnarsson. I work for IKEA, and within IKEA I work for IKEA Food, which is its own business entity within IKEA. And I currently hold the role of Deputy Managing Director of IKEA Food globally. We've been a partner for many years now, and so our business idea is to create a better every day for the many people. And that comes with that we need to provide the market with great products at as low price as possible. And of course the supply chain is the main part of making that happen. So we're in constant work of improving that, all the way from raw material to the goods reaching the store. So we talk about an end-to-end value chain, and IKEA is really an end-to-end value chain, and that's really why we are able to provide the products to the market that we do at the cost and the price that we have. So supply chain is at the core of what we do. Without the supply chain and the support we get from partners, it would not be possible to do what we do. So food has never been a core business within IKEA. It's been a service and support entity that has grown with the growth of the bigger IKEA. And now we want to take the responsibility of making that into a proper business and run it kind of like we do with furniture. Now that's not going to be possible in all elements because it's food and not furniture. But we will try to implement the ideas on how to create fantastic products at low price, even for food. So for that reason, we are now looking at support, and we are implementing a platform that actually goes all the way from central global headquarters out to the store in managing the supply chain and the goods in the store. Now, the thing we like is that they are very specific on their competence skills around supply chain. We want to work with the world's best. Second best is not good enough for us. They do supply chain and they are great in supply chain, and that's why we've chosen them.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that video, Antonio. It really gives us a good understanding what's going on. If I can just, before I bring Rodrigo into the picture, what, in your views, Antonio, have been the ingredients for success to successfully deploy your control tower, which is basically the core of your intelligence system, which you call Luminate, I believe. What has been the ingredients for success that you've seen so far with this?
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the first ones, and I'm so glad Rodrigo's here. I mean, E&Y is a global partner of ours, and we do business across the globe in the Americas, Europe, and just recently in March, in the midst of COVID-19, we jointly are working on a project in Thailand for a leading retailer. And I think the first thing is to make sure that you are getting the right advice, right? So I call it the power of three, but it's about having, you know, an E&Y with that domain expertise and that change management capability, the understanding of the market and the industry. It's about having that technology vendor, in our case, you know, Blue Yonder, with that technology and the customer aligned. It's interesting enough, even though artificial intelligence, machine learning is a little bit new to some of the areas that it's being used, you know, be it in robotics or in marketing or in supply chain. It's actually technology that's been around for 20 or 30 years. Dr. Michael Feint, who's one of our leading experts in it, he actually constantly says, look, I've been using this in academia for 40 years, right? So it comes down to really two things. I'll tell you, right, the biggest two issues that we generally see is one is that, and it's been exacerbated now, is change management. Is the company being able to make the changes internally, understanding how they need to align, what are the skill sets, what are the people, what are the processes they have to do. And the thing is, traditionally, these projects could be 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Well, actually, with time to value, we are able to do projects within 8 weeks, 4 weeks in certain areas. So the change management has become even more critical because it has to be very quick. They have to be ready by that. I think the second thing is it's data. So I would say that those are the two biggest risks, but I would love to hear from Rodrigo to see what he thinks about what are the key issues.
Great. Rodrigo, if I can ask you a question as well, sorry if I can, because you know, your vision of the state-of-the-art control tower is very important, because the architecture and the thinking is also behind your ideas. Share with us what is a state-of-the-art control tower, supply chain control tower in your vision?
Yeah, very good question, Joe. And that's why I think, just going back to what Antonio referred to, I think control tower, it is enabled by technology, definitely. You know, the technology today can put us, you know, can enable, you know, what we were talking about, a control tower. But the implication of control tower across the enterprise is, you know, sometimes is misunderstood. It's a huge impact across, and it's going to shape the way we do supply chain moving forward. It's shaping today, and will continue to move forward. I think traditionally we have seen, as Antonio said it before, you know, planning. We do the, you know, the SNOP that deploys to a weekly planning, and then we hope that execution is close enough to what we have planned. And today, not only we have the ability to plan better, you know, bring in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data from different sources, but also to be able to get information from the execution, and then adjust our plan as we go. So as we can see moving forward, I think availability of data will be more and more, you know, from our trading partners, as well as, you know, our capability to process those informations will also be faster. And to Antonio's point, I think it is very important that a couple of things when you're embarking on this, you know, it's first of all, I think you needed to plan that end state. You know, you needed to have a vision of where you're trying to get to. Some companies start with a smaller scope, and it's totally fine, but you needed to have in mind that those scopes are increasing every day, and you know how many trading partners you're able to bring in or not, and how you're going to push that agenda. make this a strategic agenda, a top priority for the senior executives. He mentioned that, I mean, change management is still huge. There are huge implications across the key processes, from a planning, from a fulfillment, from a logistics, from a customer service perspective. So make sure that you have the leadership, because not only technology is not the issue. I mean, the change process will be the key issue moving along this journey. And last but not least, one last point I would like to mention, it's very important in my experience working with different clients in different sectors. Bring your most important trading partners into it. They know your logistics providers, your key suppliers. Even if you're not able right now to connect them from a system standpoint, bring them, because it will be important to, as we progress in terms of connecting and getting visibility across our entire network.
Excellent. Okay.
Thanks, Rodrigo. So, Antonio touched on it a bit earlier, but maybe you can elaborate further. How would you scale a solution like Luminate across multi-country and product lines across a huge organization like IKEA, for example? It's great if you're talking about implementing this for just one outlet or one country, but how would you do it across multiple countries?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's where the whole pivot to SaaS adds incredible value, right? The fact that it's no longer about a company buying a perpetual license, installing it, having it in their servers, having to worry about adding memory or adding hard drive or languages and capacity. When in today's environment, we're able, in our solutions in the SaaS environments, we're able to support multi-country, multi-language, multi-currency, right? So it is designed from there. I think the conversation from the technology perspective, that is addressed. I think the question about, what country do we start? How should we deploy it? What are the priorities? That's something that needs to be done by that power of three, right? The E&Y, the Blue Yonder, the customer, all together deciding where it is. Particularly from my side, I'm always a big believer in business case. Wherever the best return is, that's where you start, right? That's the view I have, Raymond.
So on that point,
and Antonio, if I may add a comment on that, I think based on the engagements and the clients we have together, what I have seen across the network, I mean, in APAC as well as in Europe and in the Americas, it depends a little bit on your supply chain structure. If you are more, let's say, more closer to a consumer package where it's more local for local, your suppliers are local, you manufacture and you ship locally. Usually companies, what we have seen, thinking about a global scale is, take one product line, take one company, and make a very good, playbook, and then, bring this across the globe, those lessons learned. When you have more of those global traders, where you have many shipments across the globe and a lot of, in terms of volume, what we have seen is that usually companies start more at a more strategic planning layer, like S&OP, global S&OP, and then you tie into that the ocean visibility, and then you move more to a more detailed plan, the short-term plan, and then inland transportation visibility. So that's what we have seen. And again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It depends a lot on the company's strategy as well as where the benefits are. But those are some of the behaviors I have spotted on some of our clients.
Hey, Rodrigo, just a quick one to clarify. We have a question from one of the participants. What technology exactly are you referring to when you talk about control tower? I think I know the answer, but maybe you can just address that quickly.
Yeah, so the control tower technology is a combination of I would call capabilities or technology platforms that has planning. So if you're running your production planning, your logistics plan, your S&OP layer, all those capabilities, and how you add predictive analytics, machine learning components to help you to better plan. And then there is a second layer of control tower that enables what you have today at the execution layer, from your transportation management system, your warehouse management system, as well as your shippers, your logistics service providers, how you get all this information and connect that back into your into your control tower. So it's a combination, and it's a consolidation of all those technologies. But most important, it's not only about visibility, as we talk. It started as visibility, but quickly moved into, how we monitor some elements of the supply chain that are more important, and then how we start to recommend actions. And ultimately, to Antonio's point, is today, I mean, the capabilities there from an IT standpoint is how this becomes more autonomous. There are decisions that are happening today that you can have autonomous machine learning or agents, as we call, taking those decisions instead of a physical planner.
Okay. I have a really interesting question that just came in, Rodrigo. And you talk about onboarding your trading partners as well. This is critical, as you mentioned it. Are you using any community management application that facilitates a speedy onboarding of trading partners, or do you do it manually? What's the system that you use?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think that answer depends on the market you are in. It depends. I mean, we have been seeing, the evolution of those communities, as you call it, where you have that consolidation of data that helps you to onboard those trading partners faster. But in some other markets, you still need to onboard them one by one. So it depends also on your 3PL strategy or logistics strategy. But it's important, as I said, because it's not only about the onboarding process that is critical, but also most of the time, and the logistics providers will also need to go through change, because what is behind the transformation of control towers is also the operating model. There will be more opportunities for the company itself to consolidate activities that are centralized, but there will be also more opportunities to discuss services, to move things or outsource activities to your logistics providers. And those are things that you needed to have upfront in that vision exercise, and your trade partners are important.
So here we've got a question coming in from Vietnam, and this is both to either Antonio or Rodrigo. In a country like Vietnam, where you have limited availability of data, especially enterprise level data. So how can you overcome this and get your decision making right in building an end-to-end supply chain in an environment that is not data rich?
Yeah, actually, Rodrigo and I were talking about this just yesterday. I'll give my quick answer is, and this is the beautiful thing about AI and machine learning, is data is great. The better you have it, the richer it is, the more accurate it is. Definitely the plans are better. But, and this is something Dr. Michael Fine taught me, it says, but at the end of the day, with whatever data you have, AI, ML will make a better decision than you're going to make, right? So the message is, if you're going to wait for perfect data, it's never going to happen. And by the way, it's not just Vietnam. I can tell you, we see data issues in the US, we see data issues in Europe, we see data issues in APAC. Everybody has data issues. We see it in Germany, right? We see it everywhere. So, but with limited data, you're still going to get a better answer with AI ML than if you do it in the traditional way.
So as a follow-on, last question before we go back to talking about looking at it from a more macro perspective, but they're not technology related, they're data related. But with COVID-19, are you seeing a greater willingness to make this data available? Or do you think there needs to be more willingness, openness in this area? Are we seeing more big data being made available in this period, this challenging period? Rodrigo, Antonio.
Yeah, so
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a very interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Antonio.
No, I think there is certainly certain barriers for the collaboration across the supply chain, right? I think from my perspective, I think we would like to see, and it varies country to country, region by region, even industry, it varies, right? But I would say we are much more advanced now than we were 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago, it's my data. I want to have it in my server under my desk, and nobody can forget about the internet, right? Having it on cloud. We've evolved, and having it at least in cloud and starting to share that data is certainly something that companies are much more open to. I don't know, Rodrigo, how you feel about it.
Yeah, and I agree. I think there is an evolution, a very fast evolution of data and the availability of data, how much data. I mean, if you take all the, the research in terms of how much data is available today, is much more than we need it to be, quite frankly. I think what COVID, that's why it was a very interesting question from a COVID standpoint. I think what a COVID made is like, because of, remote working and decentralization of information even further, I think it helped a little bit, but I would not associate it necessarily only COVID. I think this is happening and it will continue to happen. And we are a society that will be, we're going to have a lot of data. So, and this will continue to accelerate as we put more sensors and, in everything that we do and we use every day.
Thank you. Okay, that's great questions. Thank you, audience, for that. And we'll come back to questions, but I would like to come back to Rodrigo to finish your presentation because you have one slide to share with us. And it's an important one that I think we should, thank you.
Yeah, I think this slide here, and it's just to, Antonio put a very nice testimonial from IKEA. I think there are a few messages I want to share here with the audience. Is one, when we come to control towers and the question around Vietnam in terms of data availability, control towers and the implication of control towers goes beyond, sectors or size of companies. We have been working with companies in different stages of control tower, from mining and metals, from, consumer package and retail, automotive, I mean, all industries, and larger and smaller. So I think it is a tenant that is again, as I said before, is shaping the way we do business. Sometimes we underestimate how much it changes from our daily operation as we start to have access to real to data on a real-time fashion. So, and the benefits, we always talk about a benefit, and we can see increased visibility and increased service levels, reduced cost. Definitely we see, at a higher level, agility, how you reply or how you respond faster to your changes. At the same time, you keep your reliability. Reliability is still important in this world for supply chain. So you promise a day to deliver at a certain date. So it helps you to be on top of that and reduce cost and working capital because you have much more control of the information and you don't have any latency. So I think from a P&L standpoint, that is quick. I think that in all the cases that we go through, I mean, the impact on the P&L can be quickly seen. We have some numbers here that is primarily focused on consumer package and retail, and those are the larger ones that we work with, the Unilevers of the world and P&Gs of the world. But I think the message is that the benefits are clear, and they are pretty fast from an implementation standpoint, as long as you have a good vision and a good steps on how to go after them.
Okay. Thank you, Rodrigo, for that. It's excellent. And I'm sure you will get a question later on about the ROI of an implementation of this nature. But my question to you, Rodrigo, is what are the key challenges companies have faced in deploying this type of control tower with all the interconnecting information from the different businesses, the partners, the engagement that you were talking about earlier on?
Yeah, very good question, John. I think Antonio touched on that before. I fully agree with him. I mean, technology today is not the issue. We have technology available. Technologies like Blue Yonder or Luminate. I mean, there are also excellent technologies that can help us. The question is the change behind, and how we get the executive support and how much before we needed to start to get our organization to change, right, and our ability to bring our people together along that transformation. That is for me, primarily in all those kinds of work that we have done and we are still doing. Number one, change management is very important. Again, is because it's not only on your four walls, it starts to impact your trading partners as well. And second, I think we touched on data. I think Antonio brought a good point. More and more the systems are more sophisticated to work with less data and cross-check data quality. We all needed to continue to work on data. We live in a society that data is very important, so we needed to continue to work on it.
Right. Excellent. Antonio, if I can ask you one question before we open up to the audience. Clearly, I know that you're working with a lot of 3PLs. I know you're engaging different partners, end shippers, intermediary, etc. And as we said, that change management is fundamental to all of this transformation. In your view, what is the most critical constraint barrier that you're seeing moving forward? Is it mindset? Is it education? Is it understanding? Where is the constraints that you are having to battle these challenges in this transformation journey?
Yeah. So I think I think it depends on what the time frame we look at. So in the last 3 months, it's a question about priorities, right? You know, there's been other priorities that rightly so, right? You know, taking care of the associates, taking care of the customers, taking care of suppliers, you know, health, safety.
Right.
As we go into this recovering phase, okay, or reopening phase, you know, different companies are calling it different ways. From my perspective, it generally is more about the senior management understanding the impact that supply chain has. Yeah. Okay. I mean, the practitioners of supply chain, I don't think you need to convince any of us about it, right? You know, in reference to, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, and even though I've had many other opportunities, I don't know any industry where the return on investment, okay, the payback can happen in questions of months or a few years at the most. But there is still, to some extent, in many big logistics companies, retailers, manufacturing, chemicals, whatever industry you call it, the idea about, no, I need to open up a new factory, right? Or I need to open up more stores, right? Or I need to add square meters, okay? And I think still at certain levels of the company's mid and C level, that understanding about how supply chain can help. So I think that's the biggest impediment that we generally have, Joe, at this moment in time.
And what do you think is needed? And this is a question, I think, to you and Rodrigo. How do we change this mindset? Because what you say is absolutely correct. People want service, people want delivery, people want bottom line results, but the supply chain is now becoming so integral to a business model that you can't run away from it. Yet there's this big gap of understanding and acceptance. How do we break this barrier? How do we change this mindset?
Yeah. So you know, and interested in seeing what Rodrigo has to say, but I'll just say that from my point of view, first of all, I think COVID-19 is going to accelerate this, right? Because COVID-19 has to some way expose some of the risks and some of the disruptions that can happen in supply chain. So I think to a very big extent, we're going to see that there. And the reality is the growth of supply chain, at least from our side, Blue Yonder, I mean, we've been growing double digit for many years now. So I think it's starting to catch up. I think COVID-19, and I think that education, that change of mindset is happening. I'm not sure how you see it, Rodrigo.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, Anton. I think COVID-19 really brought, you know, the topic supply chain into the boardrooms and, you know, into the C-level much stronger than before. I mean, it's interesting on our business that we definitely saw an impact on, you know, as you know, the epidemic hit the business, we saw an impact, but the speed that we were able to rebuild the pipeline in supply chain was, to be honest, a big surprise. So I think companies are getting, you know, COVID exposed, how important supply chain is, how connected they are, and how difficult it is to manage once things get a little bit out of control. So that's what is happening today. And I think how to do this, I hope we don't need to have a COVID every once in a while. I think we needed to continue to educate our, you know, our executives to make sure that they understand. And I think, to be quite honest, I think most of them understand today. Sometimes there is a gap on understanding how to change. The question is, but the companies are getting more and more into understanding that, you know, product is great, go-to-market is great, but your supply chain needs to be a top performer.
Excellent. So COVID-19 could be the paradigm shifter of mindsets towards a supply chain. Excellent. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Joe,
yeah,
we've got a few minutes left. Shall we throw some questions open?
Absolutely.
So we've got Anand, who's been waiting very patiently. Anand's based in Singapore, but he's currently in India waiting for borders to open up again. Anand, what's your question?
Yeah, good morning to everyone. My question was regarding the multiple supply chains for different products, which Antonio had touched upon a brief while back. So I just wanted to know, is there anything like multiple supply chains in the same organization, or it's just a little bit of tweaking? So I just want to understand a bit on this. Thank you.
Excellent question.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and let me clarify from the perspective. I mean, generally you want to consolidate, from the point of view of purchasing and supplying and so forth, and physical assets, distribution centers, manufacturing plants, stores, and so forth. But the reality is, almost any retailer has an online presence, right? Almost any manufacturer has multiple channels. Almost any 3PL logistics companies is going to have different industry it serves. It could be the mining industry, the retail industry, it could be cold, it could be any one of these. And my message, what I'm saying is, you might have physical assets that are the same, but you might have different segments that you have to take care of. So a good example is pricing, right? Am I going to have the same pricing for my physical stores or my e-commerce, right? Am I going to have the same service level for each one of this? Am I going to have the same assortment? Do I really want to have, in store, I have a physical limitation, right, of how much I can put on the shelves. On the e-commerce, I can have a catalog that is unlimited from the assortment perspective. So it is the same technology. So you don't need to have different forecasting solutions or different replenishment solutions or different warehousing solutions, but you need to think about it differently, and you need to be able to think about the assortment and the pricing and the inventory and the service levels in a different way. So from that point of view, that's the segmentation that you need to think about.
All right, thanks for that. We've got a question from Bipin. Bipin, you're live.
Hi, thanks very much, Raymond, and thank you, gentlemen. Very good to hear about this space. It's really exciting. But we've been speaking about control towers and how to get visibility across the supply chain for many years. I've been, I've got my gray hairs to show for that, and I just, I want to know. A lot of companies now are talking about digitalization. They're talking about, some sort of, use of technology in different forms, right? How is that now changing, and how is that consolidation happening? Because if you look at any third-party service provider, they have a digital, platform. They have some sort of, some sort of technology that they're using. How are we looking at in the future? And I'm not talking about 10 years, I'm talking about in the next 6 months to a year. How are we seeing all of this coming together and, there being some sort of consolidation across platforms?
Antonio, you want to take this one, or?
I'll leave it up to you, Rodrigo.
I think the question is, I think the way I would answer this is, and I'm based out of Shanghai. I see a lot of, emerging technologies, especially in markets like China. And especially because the need for in the market exists. So naturally we'll have all those platforms. Not all of them will make to the point that, we have, Blue Yonder today. And there will be consolidations, I believe, from some of those, and some may disappear. I think that will naturally happen, in the next few months. But I think the level of innovation is just starting, and I don't think that 6 months to 12 months is a good time frame. I think we are still to see a lot of those innovations to happen. I know visibility, has been in the market for a while. But now we are really connecting, we are really getting much more data from, machines, from trucks, from, everything that we have. And that will start to really shape how we drive supply chains forward. So again, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, consolidation will happen. I think unfortunately some will not survive. The big ones, like Blue Yonder, will lead this transformation. And the innovation is just starting, in my point of view.
All right, just one last quick question. We're a bit short of time. But Antonio, this is a question addressed to you, so you can maybe have your follow-on from Rodrigo as well. So this was the first question we got actually. How would Blue Yonder integrate the different types of platforms and data owners, aside from just paper and e-data channels? How would you integrate these variables into a meaningful and actionable AI system feeding your control tower and decision makers?
Yeah, great question. So first, going back to Bipin's question, the only thing I would add to Rodrigo, and I agree 100% with him, is I think there are two things that has changed a lot from the point of view of control towers and having. It's the first one we already talked a little bit about, which is companies are much more willing to share their data. And I think the second thing is integration is so much easier now than it was 15, 20 years ago, right? And in our case, our control tower, what we call LCT, Luminate Control Tower, it's not integrating just to our solutions, it's integrating across the board, not just internally at the customer, but externally with transportation providers, suppliers, customers, and so forth. And that integration is so much easier today with APIs and with platforms than it was before, right? So, and then going to the new question, Raymond, I'm actually going to change the question a little bit, because I think the first question you need to ask yourself, and this is one of the things that we do every time we go into a customer, is really defining what is the data. So the first question is, how can I integrate? No, I mean, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what is the relevant data that's going to impact that plan? Okay, and I'll give you some concrete examples. One of the things we learned early on is weather. Everybody talks about weather. Interesting enough, in many markets, the actual weather is not as important as the forecast weather. In other words, many people, the night before, they decide, am I going to go shopping, or am I going to go to the park, or am I going to go out based on the forecast? Okay, and they make that plan. And no matter what the weather is the next day, they still do that plan. Okay, so from that perspective, again, we're talking about what is the relevant data. So one of the first things we do when we go in, if it's Luminate Control Tower, if it's forecasting, if it's replenishment, is let's first define what is the data that's going to have an impact. In this case, the forecast of the weather is more important than the actual weather that happened in order to predict what's going to happen in the behavior. Another good example is stores at airports. We have a big customer that has a lot of stores in airports. The number one impact was cancel flights, right? Because when do people go and have a coffee? They go and have a coffee, okay, when a flight gets canceled, right? If not, most people don't have time to go and stop and buy and eat something. So we, through APIs, through the platform, through data validation, we're able to integrate all this data. But the most important question is, what is the data that is actually going to have a meaningful impact in the business outcome I'm looking for?
Excellent. Okay, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you gentlemen. We are running out of time, but I'd like to wrap up with a few takeaways. It's clear that you are pioneering, Blue Yonder, Antonio, and Rodrigo from EY, you are pioneering a new thinking and excellence in delivering advanced solutions, no question about it. Whether you are the number one or the number two, it doesn't matter. You are leaders and you're pioneering. What is your wish? What is your takeaway from what you're doing, and how would you like to see this evolving in the next 2 to 5 years? Antonio, what is your most important takeaway?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I really, and I've been doing this for 20 years, I've been very fortunate to be part of Blue Yonder and be the leaders in not just planning, but execution across the board. But the first thing I'll say is, I think the number one thing is these projects have come down and are showing value starting in the 4, 8, 12 weeks, right? So I think a lot of companies are still thinking about, yeah, I don't want to go through a 2 or 3 year transformation. You know what? We don't recommend that either. We're saying, you know what? Let's start with a project and let's go live with a certain category, certain things within 4 weeks, within 8 weeks, and 12 weeks. So the first thing I think is in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot more adoption. We're going to see a lot more time to value. We're going to see ROIs go way up. I think the second thing is autonomous supply chain is going to happen. Now, We're always going to have to be there for exceptions. But the reality is, between AI, ML, robotics, and automation in general, the autonomous supply chain is, we called it 3 years ago a moonshot. Well, I would say it's no longer a moonshot. It will be happening. Okay. And now I'll close by saying that I think there has never been a better time to be part of the supply chain community, because it will have a definitive impact across every single industry, every single region.
Okay.
Rodrigo?
So if I can summarize, basically the speed of transformation going from years down to weeks, and the automation, the autonomous supply chain, which is a reality taking us forward. Basically, that's excellent. Very good. And Rodrigo, what about you?
Yeah, just to add one point on what Antonio said, I think independent of what industry we are in, again, and independent of the status of our business today, I think we needed to get on this journey, and most of companies are ready, because they started with dashboardings and collecting more information. But I think we needed to have the vision that Antonio described. These things are happening today. They will continue to happen. They are accelerating. And I think we needed to get in. It doesn't mean you needed to have a 3-year program, as Antonio said. You needed to start, and you need to be agile. You needed to test and evolve. So that is, for me, I think the biggest message I have for everybody here, because control towers and everything that are related to control towers are really important for any supply chain moving forward.
Excellent.
Antonio, Rodrigo, thank you very much for participating. Before you wrap up, Joe, I just wanted to have a quick advertorial. Next week, we're going to be looking at a very, very interesting topic. Next Thursday, same time, where we're looking at post-pandemic logistics in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is in the news lately. And the week after that, on the 25th of June, we've got our LogiSYM Digital. And so far, we've got close to 900 people registered. The thing about LogiSYM Digital is going to be the first supply chain conference broadcast live over national radio. It's good. So our radio partner, Money FM, is going to be broadcasting LogiSYM Digital live. So be part of that history-making moment as well. Back to you, Joe.
Excellent. Thank you, Ramon, for those words. Antonio and Rodrigo, thank you very much for your time. It's been extremely interesting. I think we've only touched the tip of the iceberg on this topic, because there's a lot more that we can talk about. And maybe we can organize a second round in the near future to see how the progress is going. Your takeaways are excellent. Speed of transformation, autonomous supply chains. And Rodrigo said the need to start the program is more important than how long it takes. Engage early and engage with the right methodologies. So with that, I thank all the audience for the participation, the questions, and there are many more questions that we will take and answer later on. But meanwhile, I wish you, Antonio and Rodrigo, all the very best in the continued journey. And again, thank you very much. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Raymond. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Rodrigo.